Well, it's been actually quite a dramatic few hours in Washington. Really, over the past 24 hours, there's been enormous speculation as to whether enough Republicans would join with the Democrats and vote to have witnesses and also to vote to introduce new documents into this Senate trial. As you mentioned in the introduction, the main witness that Democrats wanted to hear from was National Security Advisor John Bolton, and that's because this week evidence has emerged that he will directly link President Donald Trump with a plot to pressure Ukraine, which members of the Trump administration evidence suggests were involved in to try to help the president ahead of the 2020 election campaign. The main thing that everyone's focused on is this push to try to get an investigation into Joe Biden, who of course could face Mr. Trump at the ballot box in November. By not calling him as a witness, it saves the White House and indeed the Republicans a substantial amount of embarrassment, and also prevents him from testifying under oath in a way that could have taken this trial in all sorts of directions and extended it. But in the end, only two Republicans decided to actually join the Democrats. They were Mitt Romney from Utah, who many people in Australia, of course, remember for running a presidential campaign, and Susan Collins from Maine. And so the motion was defeated 49-51. And Chuck Schumer, who leads the Democrats in the Senate, was particularly upset about that. He said it set a terrible precedent and was effectively a cover-up. Here's a little of what he had to say.
To not allow a witness, a document, no witnesses, no documents in an impeachment trial is a perfidy. It's a grand tragedy, one of the worst tragedies that the Senate has ever overcome. America will remember this day, unfortunately, where the Senate did not live up to its responsibilities, where the Senate turned away from truth and went along with a sham trial. If the president is acquitted with no witnesses, no documents, the acquittal will have no value, because Americans will know that this trial was not a real trial.
So, James, in Chuck Schumer's words there, a sham trial. What exactly is the significance of witnesses being blocked?
Well, new witnesses being blocked, I think it's going to set a precedent. I think it's something, this is only the third impeachment trial in American history, and I think it's something that's going to be studied and reconsidered again and again and again. It does set that precedent. It also is really quite telling about how much control President Donald Trump has over his Republican Party. He has, and his loyal supporters have effectively convinced Republicans to vote against hearing from a former member of their administration who says he has evidence that the president was pressuring a foreign country to interfere in a United States election. Now, there can be some debate as to whether or not that's an impeachable offence. There can be a debate about what bar you need to meet to remove a president from office. But most legal scholars say it's quite a shocking thing for senators to not even want to hear someone who was so closely tied with the president and would have been in all these sorts of meetings about national security and the like. It's quite a precedent to set to not even want to hear them give evidence. And I think that is probably one of the more interesting things out of this. And a lot of Republican senators have come out tonight and earlier today trying to give their reasons, and they're all slightly different, for why they didn't want this to happen. A couple said that the whole process had just been far too politicised and the trial wasn't going to be fair, and so they just didn't want to extend it. They wanted to get it over and done with as quickly as possible. One senator, Marco Rubio, even suggested that even if what the president had done was wrong and impeachable, he didn't want to remove the president from office because it would be far too divisive, and therefore he didn't want to go any further down this path. So quite interesting arguments that are going to be remembered in history books for generations and generations to come.